The Priory of the Sacred Flame Normal, Heroic, and Mythic Guide. Very quickly going to describe how this guide is set up. The video is split into chapters for each boss. You can find them down below. The first chapter will describe the trash on the way to the boss, focusing on target priority and important abilities. The second chapter covers the boss mechanics and each of their abilities, and the third chapter will be role-specific duties. Mythic normally adds one extra mechanic. It will be listed right before the role duties. Captain Dailcry's Trash. Before engaging the first boss, you must defeat 3 named mobs which are marked on your mini-map. Once each named mob is defeated, they will summon one of the boss's companions, which must also be defeated. I'll cover the trash mobs as they are encountered. Be aware that there are a lot of close packs and constant patrol routes. Footmen will be your priority for the first part as they will constantly try to shield each other. Defend will place a shield around a small area, reducing damage by 50% to any mobs that are standing inside of it. If you can hard stun and interrupt them, any mobs that were standing inside the shield will be briefly stunned and take increased damage for the next 4 seconds. They also use Mortal Strike. This is their tank buster, and it does stack. This deals damage and reduces healing by 5% for the next 10 seconds. Knights are the mounted mob. They use Impale, which will hit a random player and apply a bleed. They also use Disrupting Shout. This will deal party-wide damage and interrupt spell casting for the next 4 seconds, so stop casting before this goes off. Sharpshooters are the last mob. They randomly shoot party members. Occasionally they will leap towards a player and drop caltrops. These are marked by swirlies, but it is very brief. These traps will root any player that walks over them and apply a bleed. You'll encounter the first named mob patrolling this area as well, Guard Captain Suleiman. He uses Shield Slam, which is a big knockback on the tank. Watch where you're standing as this can knock you back into additional mobs. Thunderclap is his other ability and will hit anyone within 8 yards, reducing their haste and movement speed for the next 6 seconds. After Suleiman is defeated, he will summon the first boss's companion, Chainmail. Sergeant Chainmail. He uses Brutal Smash. This will deal damage to all players inside his circle and stun them for 5 seconds. His other ability is Lunging Strike. He will leap towards a player, stabbing them and applying a bleed debuff that lasts for 21 seconds. This will also hit and apply to anyone in his lunge path. After he's down, hit up the steps to the right and continue towards the next named mob. You'll encounter a few new mobs here. Devout Priests are the top priority. All of their spells are interruptible, however, priority goes to their greater heal. This needs to be interrupted as it heals a mob by 50%. They also use Holy Smite, which targets a random player, and Inner Fire will buff their damage by 50%. If Inner Fire is removed, they will be briefly stunned. Conjurers are next. They use Fireball, which can be interrupted, and their last ability is Flame Strike. This is marked by a large red swirly. Just avoid this area. War Lynxes will use Pounce. This targets a random player and applies a bleed. This bleed lasts for 15 seconds, or it can be removed if they are healed to full. The next named mob is Forge Master Damien. Seal of Flame will briefly buff him, increasing his damage done by 50%, and his melee attacks will occasionally create fire pools around the arena. Heat Wave will hit all party members, dealing damage and briefly slowing them. Once defeated, this will summon the next boss's companion, Elaena. Elaena Emberlanz. Repentance needs to be interrupted. It inflicts holy damage and stuns that player for 8 seconds. Holy Radiance is a channeled ability that inflicts party damage every second for the next 8 seconds. Divine Judgment is tank related and applies a 6-second debuff that increases all damage taken by 25%. After she's down, proceed back to the center area and go up the left side stairs. One new mob here is the Light Spawn. They use Purification, which will deal holy damage over 6 seconds to a single target, but more importantly, they use Burst of Light. They begin casting this at low health. If they are not killed before this cast goes off, it would deal big damage to players inside and heal any other mobs by 35%. Before facing the last named mob, there will be a large group of neophytes. They will occasionally be buffed by Inner Fire, but overall they pose no real threat and have no noteworthy abilities. Just AoE them all down. The last named mob, High Priest Amia. She will buff herself with Inner Fire and constantly use Holy Smite. Her notable ability is Reflective Shield. This places a large absorb shield on her, and all damage done to this shield reflects 40% of that damage back to players as holy damage. Once defeated, this will summon the last of the boss's companions. Taener Duelmal. Cinder Blast needs to be interrupted. It inflicts big damage, stuns the player, and applies a 5-second fire dot. Fireball will randomly hit party members, and Ember Storm will call down fireballs which are marked by swirlies. After Taener is defeated, you can head towards the boss, Captain Dailcry. Just a note, if you don't kill all of his companions, for each companion still alive, they will deal 200% increased damage. Now the boss. Battle Cry should be interrupted. It hits all players and buffs him. Hurl Spear targets a random player. This deals damage and applies an 8-second bleed. This will damage and apply that bleed dot to any other player that is in his path. Pierce Armor is tank related and can stack. It deals physical damage and applies a 10-second bleed. Savage Mauling is his ultimate attack. He will command his mount to attack a player. This deals big damage every half second. While commanding his mount, Captain Dailcry is shielded. Players must quickly break this shield in order to interrupt this attack. Mythic only. If any of his companions are still alive, they will share a health pool and have their overall health increased by 300%. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Use a defensive for Pierce Armor, especially if it stacks. Healers. All of his abilities apply a bleed. Players targeted by Savage Maul will take heavy damage. If Battlecry stacks, the damage is going to ramp very quickly. DPS. Interrupt Battlecry. Use a defensive if targeted by an ability, and quickly burn the boss's shield to stop the Savage Maul. Baron Braunpyke Trash. These next mobs will require constant kiting, and all of the mobs present need to be defeated to summon the next boss. Ardent Paladins will continuously use Consecration. This deals damage to all standing inside, and Sacred Toll will deal party-wide damage. Zealous Templars will use Divine Storm, which deals party damage over the next 5 seconds, and Templar Strike, which is a heavy-hitting tank attack. Priests and Conjurers are still present here. Greater Heal remains the top priority on interrupts. After all the mobs are defeated, Baron will jump down into the center of the room. Baron Braunpyke. Burning Light needs to be interrupted. It will damage all players, apply a 12-second dot, and heal him for 40% of his HP. Castigator's Shield. The boss will throw his shield towards a player. This deals damage and reduces movement speed by 40%. Once it hits, it will create a large circle, which players need to avoid, as it deals massive damage once it explodes. Hammer of Purity. This smashes a hammer onto a player's location, which is marked by a swirly. Hammers will then spiral out from the impact zone. Just avoid and step inside the circle. Baron's ultimate is Vindicative Wrath. This buffs his damage by 25% and makes all of his other abilities stronger. When he's buffed, Hammer of Purity and Castigator's Shield will hit 3 players instead of 1, and Burning Light will cast much quicker. Mythic only. He will use Sacrificial Pyre. This creates a pyre that lasts for 30 seconds. This has 3 charges, and if any players come into contact with it, they will obtain a stackable debuff that deals holy damage every second for 5 seconds. When buffed with Vindicative Wrath, this will have a total of 5 charges. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Positioning is important. Expect heavy damage once he uses Vindicative Wrath. Healers. Expect heavy party damage if Bursting Light goes off. All abilities will hit harder once Vindicative Wrath is active. DPS. Interrupt Bursting Light every time. And watch your feet. Prioress Murrpray's Trash. Hit up the stairs to the final zone. All mobs inside need to be killed, otherwise they will aggro when the boss is pulled. There are a couple new mobs that are present here. Risen Mages. All of their spells are interruptible. Fireball Volley takes priority as it hits all party members. They also use Fireball, which hits a random player. Risen Footmen will use Blazing Strike on the tank. This applies a 10-second holy dot. Risen mobs will deal holy damage to the party when they die. Priests and Light Spawn are also present here, so interrupt greater heals and watch for the elemental circle. The final mob here is a named mob, Sir Braunpyke. He also uses Blazing Strike, but his notable ability is Radiant Flame. Once he's aggroed, he will deal party damage every half second until he is killed. Prioress Murrpray. This boss is an intermission phase once she reaches 50% HP. Phase 1. Holy Flame will mark a circle at a player's location. Be sure to move out of this. Holy Smite is an interruptible spell that deals holy damage to a random player. The boss will buff herself with Inner Fire. This lasts for 10 seconds. It increases her damage done by 50% and deals party damage every 5 seconds. The Sacred Flame will target a random party member, and that player will have a beam that chases them. Do not drag this through your party, as it also leaves a ground effect that will do damage to anyone that steps inside. At 50% HP, the boss will relocate to the top of the platform. The party must pursue her. She will create a barrier of light around her. This is a large absorb shield that must be broken. While shielded, she will channel Embrace the Light. This will deal party-wide damage every 1 second and grow in power with each pulse. While shielded, multiple adds will spawn. They will deal damage to anyone that is close to them. They aren't that strong and should be cleaved down pretty fast before they cause any real issues. Once the boss's shield is broken, the Embrace the Light channel should be interrupted. Phase 1 will then repeat. Mythic only. Blinding Light. The party should face away from the boss before this cast finishes. Anyone looking at the boss takes big damage and is stunned. Just a note, party members will still take a burst of damage even if facing away, so keep that in mind. Role-specific duties. Tanks. Use a defensive when the boss uses Inner Fire. Healers. Expect 2 bursts of party damage while Inner Fire is active. Expect increasing party damage during the intermission. DPS. Interrupt Holy Smite. Don't drag the Holy Flame through your party, and quickly move to the top during the intermission to interrupt the boss's channel. A mythic note for healers. Expect another large burst of party damage with the Blinding Lights cast. That's it for the Sacred Flame Dungeon. Shout out to these channel members. If this video helped, then press the thumbs up. Subscribe if you enjoy WoW content. I have plenty of guides, tips and tricks, podcasts, and more. You can show extra support by becoming a channel member. It's 99 cents a month and gives you early ad-free access to all of my videos. I'll see you in the next one.